Yo, welcome back to another video. It's your boy Corey the Man. We back in here. Let's get to it. I almost didn't live stream. I didn't think I was gonna live stream, but I'm here. Um, I almost watched this. The Hulk, the original Hulk 2003 movie. I almost watched it. I stopped. It was late at night. I didn't have much energy. I might go back to rewatch it, or maybe they'll tell us about it in this movie video.
After the release of the 2003 film Hulk directed by Ang Lee, the film came out with a mixed response from critics but also a lackluster box office reception. The film wasn't a smash hit that Universal was expecting, but regardless it still made a decent chunk of money that eventually a sequel for the film was actually being developed around this time. But eventually, as we would know later on down the line, the film ultimately was cancelled and never made. So in this video I want to discuss the lost and cancelled sequel to the 2003 Hulk film, Hulk 2. Regardless though, let's jump in and find out what it was all about. Plans for a sequel to Ang Lee's Hulk actually started before the release of the first film, with producer Avi Arad, yes him, saying that he was targeting the film for a 2005 release date. And eventually after the release of the 2003 film and with the decision from Universal to move forward with plans for a sequel, they eventually got screenwriter James Schmagus, if I'm saying that right, to write a treatment for the sequel. Also for the development of the sequel, Ang Lee and Eric Bana may have actually not been returning for Hulk 2. For one, Ang Lee was already in his next pursuit with Brokeback Mountain, and he would eventually make that in 2005. Also, Eric Bana just kind of considered the first Hulk film as a one and done thing, and didn't have any plans for returning to future films. So with Eric Bana actually maybe not returning for Hulk 2, Universal is looking for other replacements for Dr. Banner, and rumors around the time suggested David Chantanti was going to replace Banner in the upcoming Hulk 2. Regardless though, with all these plans, let's actually find out what Hulk 2 might have been about, and let's discuss the plot. The plot for Hulk 2 starts with Bruce Banner after the events of the first film is now a fugitive in South America, and it picks up right after the first film ended. He hulks out, kills the gorillas, and escapes to New Mexico. Meanwhile, Betty, who I would assume be played by Jennifer Connelly still, is working at the Berkeley Institute and is still working on gamma research and is wondering where Bruce is. Meanwhile, in New Mexico, Banner is struggling to keep the Hulk inside and is haunted by the events of the first film. He makes it to a Native American reservation, and the community that he finds there turns out to be sick. He finds out that the cause of all this sickness is actually gamma radiation leaking due to an illegal nuclear waste drop on the site, which is being covered up by the government, including General Ross as well. Still looking for a cure, Banner eventually runs into a person called Samuel Stearns, who offers a cure to the Hulk, who we would eventually find out has the ability to transform into the creature called the Leader, who wants to use the Hulk's powers for himself and his own malicious reasons. Banner also finds out that Stearns gets his funding for his research from Talbot, yes, the same dude from the last movie, and he also apparently survived as well. He actually gives Stearns funding because he wants to give himself abilities to be like the Hulk and get revenge on Banner. All this eventually results in the fact that Talbot, given Banner's DNA and gamma radiation, eventually transforms into a creature called the Abomination. Meanwhile, with all this crazy stuff happening, Banner is actually suffering inside as he's increasingly suffering from a disorder called dissociate identity disorder. And eventually, slowly, a new personality takes over Banner, nicknamed Joe, and slowly we find out that this is actually the Grey Hulk as he eventually emerges in the film. Banner must ultimately fight the Grey Hulk and stop him from taking over his body and personality completely and allow the Savage Hulk, aka the Green Hulk, to come back and stop the Abomination and save the reservation. And eventually, after a massive inner struggle, he eventually accomplishes all of these things, destroys the Grey Hulk, saves the reservation, and stops the Abomination and the Leader. And eventually, that's the end of the film. So with plot details out the way and an idea what the film might have been like, what was the ultimate reason why we actually never got to see it on the big screens? The ultimate reason for why Hulk 2 was cancelled was actually multiple reasons, so let's get into it. For one thing, the 2003 film had mixed reactions and also a lack of box office success, which discouraged Universal from really attempting a full sequel to the original film. And second, the final reason why the film was ultimately not made was actually because of deadlines. See, when James's first draft of the screenplay for the film was submitted, the film was delayed for multiple script revisions, and this was an issue because when Universal bought the rights to make a Hulk film, the contract they signed with Marvel stipulated that after the release of the first film, a sequel must start 3 years later or the rights of the production would go back to Marvel Studios. And ultimately, this is what happened, as Universal failed to start the film's principal photography due to the multiple delays in script revisions by 2006, which ultimately resulted in the rights to produce the Hulk film given back to Marvel Studios. When the production rights of the film were given back to Marvel, Universal decided to make a deal with Marvel, which basically means that Marvel would produce the movie, but Universal has the rights to distribute the film. And with all these deals being set in stone finally, eventually the ultimate product was in 2008 The Incredible Hulk, which was produced by Marvel but also distributed by Universal. And the film was also a complete reboot of the series, and also a taboo in the series of the MCU to say the least. It also acts weirdly as a semi-sequel, but that's besides the point. This whole situation also explains why we haven't gotten another Hulk film since the 2008 one, as Marvel doesn't really want to work with Universal and wants to get the full rights to distribute and make the movie as well, which Universal isn't really wanting to give up. So at this point there's kind of a stalemate with the character in terms of solo Hulk movies.
Oh my god, bro.
But this part's only for solo Hulk films. Marvel can still use Hulk as a third character in a lot of the other movies that are not involving Hulk as the central character, and they don't have to report to Universal for anything, and they have the entire rights to the character there. Which explains why Hulk is in Thor Ragnarok and the Avenger movies and so on and so on. Overall, my thoughts on this cancelled sequel is, well, I am a pretty big fan of the original Ang Lee Hulk, and I do think that the story as a whole sounds pretty cool and unique. I like the whole reservation idea, and that the Hulk is fighting his old friend Talbot now as the Abomination is also a pretty interesting idea. But I'm also unsure about the quality and the success of this Hulk 2, as once again, Ang Lee would have not been involved in this film most likely, and Eric Bana as well, which I think those two were pretty much critical factors to why I think the first film was so successful, and without them that wouldn't really have felt right, at least in my opinion. And overall, I'm really not sure how successful or how great a Hulk 2 could have been. And honestly, at the end of the day, I do like Hulk in the MCU honestly more, because seeing him interact with all these other Marvel characters and seeing him participate in all these crazy events like Endgame and Infinity War is honestly really great, and I really enjoy seeing it. And even if you wanted a continuation of the Ang Lee Hulk, we also got that also with the Hulk movie tie-in video game, which features some of the old cast from the movie, and it also takes place after the movie's events. So fans aren't entirely saddened and aren't entirely let down, as we do get to see some continuation of the Ang Lee Hulk universe.
Alright, I guess. I think